In today's economy, more people than ever are looking to buy and sell businesses. But how do you do it? Welcome to the Deal Board, presented by Transworld Business Advisors. Straight talk about real deals and real people. Listen to stories, interviews, and expert advice to help your business sale, merger, or acquisition process. Now, here are your business exit experts, Andy and Jessica.
Welcome back to the Deal Board, everyone. And for those of you who joined us last time, we're continuing our Back to Basics series, where we're talking about myths in the brokerage and M&A space. Last time we talked about business buying myths, and today we're going to talk about business selling myths.
Yeah, there's a lot of business selling myths. A lot of business owners come to us with a preconceived notions of what they think they're going to get for the business, how the process works, how quickly it'll sell. I don't even know if we have that on there, how quickly it'll sell,
No,
but we don't, but it's going to take some time, and we could go over all those right now. So why don't we jump into the number one? Gotta love this because it's always the number one issue when we first talking. I just had one, swear to God, like an hour ago, talking to someone who owns a chain of gyms. And I'll tell you the punchline once you tell us what it is.
Yeah. So the number one myth is that you will get 5, 6, 7 times your earnings for your small business.
Yeah. And I was just talking to a multi-unit gym that's grossing about $4 million. That's barely profitable. Mm-hmm. And, there's 2 people running it. There's all kinds of, maybe if we cobble together everything, we're going to get, $300,000, $200,000 worth of earnings on $4 million plus in revenues, which is not good, which we could have a whole conversation about the way they're keeping their books and writing off capital expenditures. Anyway, to make a long story short, we told them maybe we could get you $1 million or something. And they went off the handle. They're just like, no, we want 1 times earnings. We hear it's worth 1 times earnings. And I've heard 5 times, not earnings, 1 times revenues. Yeah. I've heard 5 times revenues. I've heard, Snapchat sold for 100 times earnings. I mean, we hear all these things all the time. And the number one thing we have to try to deal with a seller is price.
Yeah. And look, this is not Andy and I killing your dreams of valuation or your broker being mean. And we've talked about valuation as part art, part science. It is a lot of science though, right? And it's not just the broker or the buyer, but there's other parties that are determining valuation. We talked about lending and financing in the last episode, and lenders are part of that financing equation. And it is an equation. There's an industry standard formula. There's private comps in the marketplace to back up this valuation data. It has to fit. And we talk about this all the time. It has to fit within the parameters or in the box to get an accepted offer that's able to be financed and accepted by all the industry players and the buyer, not just your broker that's trying to give you their advice.
Yeah, the buyer at the end of the day is going to buy your business. They're going to have to make a return on their investment. At the same time, if there's any debt involved, which there 90% of the time is going to be some debt involved, whether it's SBA lending and or seller note, they're going to have to be able to afford to pay that note and afford to make a living and afford to at least get some return on their investment. And all those things lead to pretty much a range of what your business is worth. And we're going to talk about valuation later, but for the most part, you're going to have to be reasonably priced to sell your business.
Yes. Yep. Which kind of leads into our second one, which is that if I'm a seller and I hide a lot of money in cash, call it 20% of my earnings in cash, the buyer is going to find the money just by looking at my lifestyle. They don't need financials to back this up. We joke about this. There's some areas of the country, some industries that we see this more commonly than others, but you have to have financial documentation to back up the revenues, the expenses, the earnings that prove it to the buyer and all the players involved in the deal.
Yeah, we hear it all the time. I have a second house. I have a Rolex watch. I have a Maserati, Lamborghini, Ferrari, whatever it is. They're going to show the buyer just through their lifestyle how the business has supported them over the years. I sent 3 kids to college on this. What do they think's happening here? I've owned this business for 20 years. Well, we all know that things change. And we all know that there could be family money, there could be other income coming from other places. You're going to have to get your business in shape. And thank God that Jessica has a business that can help you do that, by the way. So you could give her a call and talk to Exit Factor to talk about how to get your business so you don't have to look at a broker or look at a buyer and say, well, just look at my lifestyle, because we all know that doesn't work.
Yeah. And really, I feel like just in the culture of business, that ship has really sailed, right? There's such more of a focus on transparency and verification in the business world too. And also, if you see demographically these generations changing, Gen X, the millennial buyers, the professional buyers, they want to see it documented. They don't care about the lifestyle anymore if it's not on a piece of paper that's verified financial records.
Yeah, we're seeing so much less businesses come forward with cash. I just saw an infographic from something that said that I think it was the United States is at about 15% cash transactions. And some of the other countries in the world are trying to lower it because they want to collect taxes, they want to do things. And I think it was India that's looking to lower cash transactions by 60% over the next year or two. Right. So there has been some pushback. We see it out there in the world, but you're absolutely right. Most businesses have a point of sale system. Most businesses are taking credit cards. Most businesses are Zelling or Venmoing, or, there's all kinds of businesses. There should be books and records in your business. So the buyer is not going to look at your lifestyle. So sorry. Yeah. And speaking of buyers, our next one is that my son or daughter or employees will buy the business. And we're seeing less of that today than ever before, right?
Yeah. And I mean, look, we said at the top of the other episode that there are situations when this does occur, but our goal in dispelling some of these myths is to give you options and not stacking the cards against you. And by and large, the next generation, unless you're in a multi-generation family business already, does not want what their parents have built. Or if we look at employees, like the data shows in the US, only about 5% of the population want to be entrepreneurs. So I don't think we're like rock star chefs yet, but entrepreneurs are pretty popular in culture. And there's a lot of famous entrepreneurs. But if you look at it, most people don't want the risk of owning a business because it was a very risky career to own a business. Andy and I can tell you all about that in another episode. So if you stack all of your future plans on one person, any person, whether that's your son, your daughter, an employee in the business, and then they turn and say no, sometimes that can be the death of a business and prevent the exit.
Yeah, and most kids, and we see so many generational failures. I forget what the percentages are, but it goes way up past the second generation, that most businesses will not last intergenerational beyond maybe one generation. And really, a lot of people that come to the country, or immigrants, or people who start the businesses, they're of a different ilk, and they have these, let's say, restaurants or gas stations or convenience stores or contracting businesses, and they make money and they send their kids to schools and they get them specially trained. And these kids go after different careers, and that's okay. And so a lot of times you shouldn't, and the point of all this is you should not count on your employees or your son or your kids or your nephew or whoever to buy your business. That is not a good plan. They're probably not the highest and best buyer for your business, and you need to look elsewhere.
Yes. Yes. And that kind of leads into our next one too, just a little bit. And we've talked about this a lot, but confidentiality, Andy.
It's number one. It is absolutely number one thing that we're worried about with the business. I often tell people the nice thing about working with Transworld is we help businesses expand either through franchising or buying other businesses. So if you hire us and it leaks out, you could at least have an excuse. But you should not tell your employees, your vendors, or your landlords about the sale because it will have implications.
Yeah. I hear this all the time, especially with the employees. And I totally get it. If you have a team that's been with you and they've built the business and you feel some loyalty to them. But I always caution with people do not like change. Change brings fear. We just talked about most people are not entrepreneurial minded. So when they hear a sale is pending, they go to things they hear in the media. Like, and every time I feel like you turn on a new large merger or acquisition, the second story that follows is layoffs, right? So if you think about that's culturally what they have in their mind, and you don't need to cause fear, worry about change, because people will make detrimental decisions to your business when they have that fear of change in place.
Yeah, everybody's out for number one. So the employees are going to look elsewhere. The vendors maybe put you on cash instead of COD instead of giving you terms. We didn't even mention competitors. If they find out, they'll start spreading it around. You certainly don't want to do this. The best thing to do is just wait for the closing day and even encourage the buyer. That's the best. We encourage buyers too. Don't tell anybody, even that you don't want to tip people off. Best thing to do is go in there. And even post sale, a lot of times they keep it confidential. I mean, we always want to do press releases about our deals, but a lot of buyers say, no, we just want to keep it under the radar. Hey, a new partner's here. This person's helping us bring the company to the next level, and everybody just quietly moves along.
Exactly. And Andy, I have plenty of horror stories. We've talked about this, but people telling their landlords and the landlords listing the space for lease, telling employees, all the employees leave. Just, it's best practice. I've never seen it turn out well for anybody. So the next one is there's only one way to list my business or for buyers to find business opportunities to buy my business. And really, there's not any one way or place. And I think what we have proven at Transworld is that when you're going to market your business for sale, you need a big reach. You need a big buyer pool so you can narrow down the buyers and pick the one who has not just the best deal for your business, but also is the best fit for your business. And you need a multifaceted marketing strategy to build that buyer pool.
Yeah, you can't post it on Facebook from the last one, right? You got to keep it confidential. So you can't do it yourself. And even I've seen people do something crazy, like put it on Craigslist or buy their own biz buy sell ad. And even in the way that they're describing the business or the way they put it on biz buy sell that has the contact, people could Google email addresses, they could Google phone numbers, and they see that it's you. And they quickly figure out that business is for sale. It never ends well. And the best way to find the best buyer is that a broker like Transworld, we're the number one online advertiser in the world. We're going to have a multifaceted approach to finding the buyer. And so there isn't a NASDAQ for selling small businesses. I talk about it all the time. I wish there was, but there isn't a trading floor. Yes, biz buy sell. Yes, businesses for sale. Yes, there's all kinds of LoopNet. There's all kinds of things out there, but there's no one source that's going to provide the best way to sell your business. We have to use database marketing the way we do at Transworld, and it's very hard to recreate that as a seller.
Yeah. And there's a customized approach for every business too, right? What's going to work for selling a restaurant is not going to work for selling a manufacturing company. What's going to work for selling a business in a downtown environment is not going to work in a rural mountain region, right? So there's a different marketing strategy for every business out there.
Yeah, and there might be specialized buyers. Like when we have a psychology practice for sale or a urology practice for sale, both of things which I've sold, we're just not going to go out to the general public. We're going to try to find fellow urologists or fellow psychologists that are going to maybe move to our area or want to expand their practice. So we might do a very limited search, and it might not be throwing it on Biz Buy Sell, or other transworld.com. Sometimes we have to keep it confidential from that. So there's all kinds of ways that we do this, and that is not the best way to sell your business. And so we have a multifaceted approach. Yeah.
And speaking of our multifaceted approach, one way we advertise businesses for sales on this podcast. So we're going to take a quick break and feature our latest listing of the week and deal of the week. So if you're looking to buy a business or you're selling your business, want to hear a deal, just listen to these and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Hey, Jessica, you know what time it is?
Money time?
Almost. It's time for listing of the week.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It is listing of the week, and we got a good one with Ryan Armstrong from Transworld Business Advisors in Phoenix. And you have a really nice listing. Tell us about it.
We do. We have a specialty contractor and contracting and distribution company in Phoenix, 5.9 million with an additional 4.75 in land. It's doing great. It's over $1 million in EBITDA.
Wow.
So 30-year-old company, second generation, looking to retire.
Wow. I mean, it can't get better than that. And I know what kind of specialty contractor it is. We can't even say it because it's such a niche that, you would kind of know. But it sounds like something that will be very popular with buyers. What do you think the financing is going to be? Sounds like it's a good SBA deal.
Yeah, great SBA deal. Also some seller financing may be involved.
Right.
Depends if they find the right buyer.
They find the right buyer.
Tons of processes and procedures in place. The owner is like meticulous, though, ready for somebody to walk in and just company will be running.
Company will be running. I love businesses that have been in business for, 3 decades almost?
Yeah, almost 30 years. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Second generation.
Yeah, that's a great business for someone out there. Ryan, what's the best way to get in touch with you if somebody wants to know more?
Armstrong at tworld.com, or you can fish me on my cell phone, 760-802-7945.
Great listing of the week. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, Andy, do you know what time it is? It's time for our deal of the week.
Deal of the week.
Sold.
Hey, we're back, and it is Deal of the Week, and we have Rupesh Berard here from Transworld Business Advisors of Richmond and Virginia and RVA, which is also Maryland. And you just, speaking of Maryland, you just closed a deal that was in 2 different states. Tell us about it.
That's thank you so much, Andy. And it is always great to talk to the master and a veteran of this industry. And recently, the Hall of Fame.
All right.
So this deal was a very challenging deal. This was deal that involved 2 truck stops, 2 different states. Real estate licensings were involved. Beer and wine and liquor licenses were involved. 2 Hardee's franchise.
Wow.
Truck stop, auto sale, and mom and pop restaurant, all together under one transaction. There were no less than 20 different licenses we have to go through.
20 licenses.
2 different franchises and structuring under, also on top of that, bank financing. So we have to prepare seller, we have to prepare buyer, we have to get them ready, package this deal. And just to give you the complexity of it, feasibility, we have to run almost 9 months of feasibility and the all licensing processing. So the feasibility was very long, but we have a processes that we went through one step at a time, clear all the licenses, and finally, happy buyer, happy seller.
There you go. Great deal. Big truck stop, lots of moving parts. That's what we're good at, finding the best buyer for the good deals. Good deals, good people, right?
Good deal for good people.
All right. Thank you so much. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
You can call me on my direct cell, 804-835-6363, and we can have a confidential discussion. Or you can email me, Rupesh, RUPESH @tworld.com.
Thank you. Thank you, Rupesh.
Transworld Business Advisors is the world's largest business brokerage and mergers and acquisitions firm with over 500 brokers in nearly 200 offices worldwide. Transworld's team handles thousands of business sales every year. To be connected with a qualified business broker or learn more about the buying and selling process, visit tworld.com/the deal board or call 888-719-9098.
Hey, we're back. And those were two great examples of buying and selling businesses. So we always love the deal of the week and the listing of the week. It really kind of brings it home for us. So we were talking about back to the basics about myths when selling your business and what sellers should understand before they go to market. And I have a good one here because I hear it all the time that people come to us and they immediately say, my accountant told me that I should sell the stock of my business because that's going to have the best tax treatment when I eventually sell.
Yeah. And it's a huge myth. And again, there are outliers where this is the right way to do it. But the large majority of transactions are not sold through stock sales. They're sold through what we call asset sales. And we won't get into all the weeds, but basically it's a much better legal vehicle for protection for mostly the buyer, but the seller too, to sell a business. So there's not any type of overlapping legal liability between the two parties.
Yeah, and the buy, and it goes back to taxes. It goes back to sales tax. It goes back to taxes. Buying someone else's corporation is usually fraught with past liabilities, and there's not enough paperwork in the world for reps and warranties to try to get this done. Now, like we said, there are situations like in medical and other things that where there's contracts where we're going to sell the stock of the business. For the 95% of the deals out there, we're not selling the stock. So it's just not, so don't get it in your head. That's what's going to happen, that you're only going to have tax treatment that on a stock sale where you're going to have only capital gains. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. And likewise too, not a tax planning episode. We should probably do one of those and bring one of our tax partners on. But you will hear probably from your accountant that if you have an asset sale, you're going to pay ordinary income tax on that. And that's not also always true. There's usually a blend of what's going on. And it's a sophisticated negotiation that a good broker will lead you through to come up with how the tax treatment of the sale is. So don't hear this and be like, oh my God, then the tax bill is going to be ginormous. Well, it could be, but if you have the right representation, the right negotiators, it won't always be. So.
Yeah. And speaking of selling stock in my business, a lot of times there's multiple people in businesses and people call us and say, hey, Andy, I want you to replace my dad or my partner because I don't like them anymore. I did not that, my dad wants to retire and I want to sell 20% of his stock, or I want to be able to, I'm getting divorced. I want to replace someone in my business. And I've had a couple of those, but what we found that's really not going to happen for the most part.
Yeah. And the myth we wrote is that I can easily find or replace a partner to buy the shares. Like, can it be done? Yes. Is it easy? Absolutely not. Now, we had a episode probably about a year ago about a few legislative changes, specifically with the SBA, that you now can, have partial sales and things like that. And then there was some other legislation changes where brokers can help with that, but it still is not easy to do. If you think about, you're taking on a new partner, right, Andy?
Yeah, it's like trying to arrange a marriage. And we do think this is a little glimmer of hope. Like you said, the Broker Simplification Act of 2023 gave the green light to brokers to handle partial stock sales for businesses. We're still trying to work it out with whether or not we're going to violate SEC regulations, but I do think that this is going to happen eventually. And I think the ability to have clarity in how the business has been making money and how it distributes money eventually could get to a point where this will be much easier. But for the most part, if you want to sell a minority share of your business, now 50-50 might be a little bit easier. And then, of course, bigger businesses, when we sell a majority share, or we do a recap of the business, a recapitalization of the business where private equity comes in and buys a big business. We're not talking about those. Those are a little bit easier. We're talking about that you had a minority partner or you had an equal partner and you want us to arrange a marriage and find someone else to do that. Very difficult to do, probably not going to happen.
Yeah, especially on those smaller size businesses. It's a marriage, right?
Right.
So, okay. So this next one is very reminiscent of one that we talked about on the buying a business myths, but the next one is my business is different. So we do have those situations where all of the advice, the coaching Andy and I have done on the deal board, we've talked about you've got to have good books and records, you've got to file your taxes, you have to be priced appropriately. But then we hear, but my business is different because X, Y, Z, A, B, C. I mean, we've probably heard every reason under the sun, right, Andy?
Every reason under the sun. I have the best customers. I have the best location. I have different employees. I run it absentee, which is not true. I have the best revenue model. I have a recurring revenue model, whatever it is. They think their business is different. Now, the good news is every business is different, but what we have seen year after year and talking about pricing and talking about the transfer of businesses is things are so similar that it really follows kind of a formula for pricing the business. It follows a process for selling the business. And for the most part, we just talked about stock sale or asset sale. It follows a procedure and normal documents to kind of get it done. So your business is not different. It's probably not going to be that one data point that is completely outside of everything else. You're probably going to have to fall in line like everybody else to sell your business through traditional manner.
Yeah. And what the funny part is, Andy, is that those ones that do fall in the outlier, I find the owner never believes they're different, right? Those owners have just built a really solid fundamental business. They have a good humility about their business. They feel grateful and lucky to be able to transition at all. And those are the ones that are the outliers, right?
Yeah. And what's usually different is not the business, but the current environment. All of a sudden, a business sector will get hot, like HVAC right now. Like it is so hot, no pun intended. It's so hot that people are coming in and paying ridiculous multiples. And we saw that in the credit card processing business where they were buying books. And we see that in the accounting practice system where they're doing these roll-ups. And if these roll-ups come around, we saw that in the car dealership business. All these businesses that all of a sudden have a roll-up and there's something different. That's different. And then, when the roll up comes around to buy you, you need to pay attention because, and it kind of leads us into our next one because so many times we have business owners that I know the process. This is my specialty. And not even the seller sometimes, it's their attorneys, it's their spouses, it's their managers, it's the accountants. I know how this usually goes. I've been in banking. I've been on corporate CEO and done 15,000 roll-ups. I mean, they always have a story about why they know the process better.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I think this goes back to really having a respect and a need for advisors on your team that are going to guide you through the process. One, I think there is a point where you need to remove yourself from your own business. Even if you have experience in the process, in transactions, you've done it before, there's always a level of emotion when it's yours, right? And I think you need to remove that emotion from this deal world. But also, why wouldn't you rely on the people that do this day in, day out, full time, oversee thousands of deals? Wouldn't you want their creative brains to guide you through this process? They have their pulse on the market. They know exactly what's going on. So,
and we see it all the time. We talk about how we had to drag a buyer or seller through the process and barely got them through because they're their own worst enemy. And for the most part, the deals that go well are the people, like you said, that understand that the professionals are here and they turn it over to them and they go for the ride. And we see it all the time when we get to the closing table, and they say something like, "Thank God you were here. It would have never closed without you." And
Yes.
sometimes they're their own worst enemy, and we have to snap them out of it.
Yes. I mean, I always think about, we quote how private equity does business a lot, not because they're the best, right? But because they do the most transactions. And if you think
Sure.
about it, they do a ton of transactions. They're professional buyers, they're professional sellers. They always have a team, right? They're always
Right.
going through a broker or investment banker on both sides of the deal. So,
Right.
all right. Last but not least, your favorite topic.
Yeah, valuation. And so valuation is an art. We talked about this at the top of the hour or the top of the episode. And valuation is an art. It's not a science. But the good news is the art's getting finer, and the painter's brush on some of this stuff is getting a little bit of a finer point. But you can't rely on just one valuation method. You cannot value on one method, one appraiser or one bank or one CPA or one opinion. What we see is we have to go out to multiple methodologies, multiple sources, and then we could kind of triangulate a good bit. We could come up with a pretty good range of what a business is worth.
Yeah. And it's also like over multiple time periods. You can't do evaluation on 1 year. You've got to do it on multiple years. You can weight those years different. There's so many different methods. A year to year, if your business is worth, $1 million this year, that doesn't mean even with the same numbers, it's going to be worth $1 million next year. Andy talked about there could be changes in the marketplace. It could heat up in your industry. It could cool down. Interest rates could rise, right? Things can change. So evaluation is a moving target, right? And really everything that everyone's trying to do is to create a really focused, like I said, a focused box of the range of value for your company at a specific period in time.
Yeah, you just can't rely on one. That's the myth. The myth is you can't just say, I have a valuation and this is correct. And it's like any real valuation probably has 5 methodologies in there. And we just had a deal where they disallowed one of the spouse's incomes that really wasn't working. And really, it's a judgment call at the end of the day about who's right and who's wrong. And it affected the value of this business from $850,000 down to $600,000, which is a huge difference.
Yeah, it's a big difference. And like you said, Andy, everyone's going to have their own approach. Your broker is going to have an approach. You may have an approach. The buyer is going to have an approach. The bank's going to have an approach too. And they're not going to be the same number. They never are. I don't think I've ever seen a deal where all the numbers lined up, right? So it really comes down to, it is a negotiation. It is what can the buyer get on an ROI on investing in the business? Can the debt be covered? All of those things come into play. But you should use multiple as data points.
Yeah. Well, I think that wraps up 2 amazing episodes. I mean, I think this is really some of the best episodes that if you're out there to buy or sell a business and you're looking for a place to start, these are really 2 good episodes. We need to promote it that way.
I know. Maybe we'll put it in our playlist of our back to basics, but we hope you enjoyed both of these. As always, you can find more of our episodes at thedealboardpodcast.com or your favorite streaming service. And if you have ideas, you can reach out to us on that website as well.
Yeah. Look forward to the next one. Thanks, Jess.
Thanks for tuning into the show today. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends on social media. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcasting app. If you have questions, would like to appear, or have suggestions for topics for the show, get in contact with us through our website, thedealboardpodcast.com.